I set up and getting through this barbed wire fence. It was a fence, not a concertina or a tactical military type thing, but I was kind of mad. I finally just ripped them through that, got it set up at the end of this hedgerow, or this little finger of trees that went out there, and a little terrace there, and I was firing off of this terrace and firing the protective fire. And by the way, this guy fired that 76 as I was going out there, and it knocked me down. It just further got me irritated. And I was set up. I fired a couple of boxes of ammunition, firing protective fires, and apparently we drove the Germans off, and they left me a little souvenir with a hand grenade went off right at the end of my machine gun. And by the way,
did you actually see troops attacking?
Say again?
Did you actually see troops attacking in your line of fire?
You couldn't see zilch, except the tracers. And what you're doing is firing a final protective fire, making them come through. Oh, they're right out there. You bet on it. And in fact, I started to tell you that when I set the machine gun down, I was pretty mad. It was an A6 on a bipod. I set the thing down as I did. A 31 caliber round went bouncing off that bipod, and I'm nearly go home with a soprano voice, when that thing had hit. But counting my blessings. So I kept that bipod, by the way, where it hit the bipod, the steel jacket of the bullet made a little, not only a dent but stain like thing.
Still have that?
Well, I wish I had have taken it off when we evacuated. No, gosh, no, I turned that machine gun in a long time ago. Anyway, sparks flew off of it, it'd make a believer out of you. So in any case, I got hit, and it just fragments in my head and stuff, and from a potato masher type grenade. Went back to the aid station, and our hospital had been overrun, and there was no place to evacuate. The aid station was back in a building, back in this little village of Mont. And we laid out there on a stretcher and kind of wrapped up your head and all, and no place to go anyway, but get a good night's sleep in a warm building, So I hadn't any more and got kind of wrapped up, and here come that machine gunner that had been in that tank firing that 50 caliber, and he had a 31 caliber bullet up in his nose. And he said, I saw that damn thing's coming, and I ducked. But what had happened, the round had hit that ring mount and ricocheted down and hit him in the nose. Wow. And of course he was still alive, still loving that tank. And there were 72 dead back there. When I went back to the line the next day, there's no place to go anyway. So I just went back, and we were still in the same position. They had a machine gun company, infantry, of course they'd artilleried us, and mortars and so forth that they'd attacked us with, a standard kind of an attack. But we wiped them out. They never did get to us. And that's fairly typical, I understand, of the battles that happened in the defensive area. As far as I know, the defenses had never been breached while we were in the defensive position. And we lost, by the way, probably the greatest single group of casualties that we sustained was we had a platoon of engineer types that were called ammunition and pioneer platoons. They handled the land mines and stuff. We had mines that we'd mine this roadway coming up, and we'd tie, these were anti-tank mines with a kind of a pressure plate on it, and it had a fork thing, a string that would go in between the plate and the mine to safety it up. And we just tie those things together with wire and drag them across roads and stuff, and then drag them back and all that. Well, no one really knows for sure what happened to this platoon, except that they were cleaning up the mines and getting them all assembled in one area, and they were loading them on a truck right outside of this house. And my own opinion is that the ice had frozen where you stick this fork between the pressure plate and the mine itself. And it'd be frozen, so it's not going to go anywhere. So I figured that somebody mishandled one and couldn't get the fork in there, one or more of them, and they were tossed them on the truck. it went off. We lost the whole platoon. It was a tremendous disaster. In fact, some of our people got together and built a monument there.
Did you know some of the guys?
Yeah, they were just, been in that regimental headquarters ever since we had. You know each other and fuss and fight together and all. Yeah, and I had no personal relationship with these young fellas, but got some pictures somewhere of the 2.5-ton truck, the chassis in one place and the engine in another. Is a tremendous thing. And that was probably the worst thing that happened to us in the defensive area. We got relieved, but it was after Christmas, and the 4th Armored, I believe it was, pretty sure it was the 4th Armored, came up to with their tanks and relieved us. Of course, again, we were at full strength, pretty much. What we needed was resupply of ammunition and food and stuff. And by the way, it did fare off after Christmas to where we could get parachutes full of equipment, containers, gliders could land. And by the way, some of our friends down here was a glider pilot. We had some artillery mousetrapped in there with us, 240 gauge, 8-inch stuff, big stuff. And of course, they were out of ammunition. But when it fared off, they could bring in ammunition. And when you're hauling that kind of caliber ammunition, you're supposed to keep the fuses separated. The fuse is about the size of a thermos bottle, okay? It's a big old thing. And my friend Doug down here flew in about 6 rounds of 240 gauge ammunition, and he put the fuses in the co-pilot seat and strapped them down. They didn't figure they were coming back anyway. So he flew them in, and they got to us. And the Air Force, of course, the Air Corps, could begin flying, and they just decimated that armor. After we moved out, you'd see knocked out tanks. One had got a 500-pound GP bomb, must have been right beside it. It was turned over into this bomb crater, and you'd see these guys, particularly in P-47s. There'd be some 20 millimeter and 88 anti-aircraft stuff firing for them, and that one guy would get way up there and orbit around and start shooting at him. Here'd come the other 3, and that was the first time that I saw rockets. Well, we moved out then, got reorganized. We moved out on the attack, and the Germans by this time were pretty much falling back through the Ardennes, and we went up to cut them off. And we attacked them in a place called the Beaujacques Wood, which was a killing ground. Again, it was the real creepy kind of place with all these trees, and it was just a mess. I remember we went up this hill, and we'd overrun these Kraut positions, and there was a Kraut medic there, and he'd been treating some of his wounded. And these German medics wore a big bib-like thing over their clothes, had a red cross on it. And he looked up and saw me and just kind of shrugged and went walking off. And this was the time when...
You let him go?
Say again?
You let him go?
Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't. No, you
don't capture him? Or?
No. He's doing some good. Let him go. No, you wouldn't mess with the medic, rather treating our people or their people.